This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
We have got a fun little concept on tap for all of you for today. It's a little bit of a dead period in terms of sports. Of course, at the Stanley Cup Finals, NBA Finals all going right now, but we're starting to look ahead to NFL season, which is not as far away as you may think. So today, we're taking a look at win totals at FanDuel Sportsbook, and we're going to draft our best bets among all the win totals at FanDuel Sportsbook, including alt markets, and do it snake draft style. Me versus Brandon Gdula to identify who is the true NFL expert at FanDuel Research. We're going to start it off today by kicking through our draft of the NFL win totals for 2025. Welcome on into Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is Jim Sannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, joined here as mentioned by Brandon Gdula. Check him out on Twitter at Gdula13. He is on Blue Sky at Gdula. Check out his work at FanDuel Research, where he is a senior managing editor. Brandon, it is June, which means it's not quite NFL season, but it's close enough. How you doing today?
Well, I'm a little nervous for the concept of this.
Is it because I've given you no structure for it and have thrown like massive darts at you at the last second because I kind of didn't think about it in advance? Could that be it?
So I'm scrambling. I mean, like I did my research, but the intricacies of this I think were impossible to plan for as it is, and Jim's been kind of changing some stuff on the fly. But I mean, this is not like the first win total draft you've probably ever listened to, anybody listening, but this isn't just like who do you prefer between the Eagles and Bills, like take the high. This is kind of it we're looking at the odds, and so even if you looked at just the not the alt markets but the expected win totals, like the baseline win totals, there's 64 options, and we're going to snake draft them. And these could be any number of things that come up. And I feel like somehow I'm still going to get sniped on some.
I know.
But at the same time, like, you could pick first and pick something that I wouldn't even consider.
Right. Cause I have no idea what you like.
I know it's like, it's so out there that, I'm a little nervous, and I like to plan for everything. I like to be like, okay, so he's probably picking this. I don't know what's happening here.
Yeah. I also forgot that we're going to do a coin flip on air. And I haven't pulled up the tab for that yet. So we're just like hyper organized, but this is going to be fun. I am excited. Oh man, Google is running it automatically. Okay, whatever. We'll eventually get there. We're going to do a flip to see who picks first. Basically, we're going to go snake draft style. I make a win total bet at FanDuel Sportsbook, one that I like. Then Brandon will pick two, whatever it may be. And whoever has up the most units at the end of the year is going to be the NFL expert, the champion of FanDuel Research. We'll get to the head-to-head going here in just 1 second. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to the Covering the Spread podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. No show next week because I will be out of office. I'm going to be on vacation. So no show next week. Back with you again later on in July, though. Got the Home Run Derby coming up. We've got the Open Championship. We got a lot of fun stuff coming down the pipe here on Covering the Spread. So search for Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe. And if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating and review as well. And of course, all of our football shows do go on the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page. Subscribe there. Leave us a thumbs up if you're watching YouTube. I'd appreciate all of you over on the YouTube side of things. As always, FanDuel is the best place to find all your favorite player props. And now you can make the smarter play with new performance trends. Want to see if a guy is hitting that over consistently, or maybe they've been flirting with a potential triple-double? Get the latest stats right inside the app and see who is heating up. And once the game starts, that's when things get interesting. You can combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. If you don't already have FanDuel, it is not too late to get in on the action. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit MD Gambling Help in Maryland. Help is here for the gambling helpline, ma.org, or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's begin things here by breaking down the rules for this draft. We're going to do a stake draft. We'll each do 6 win total bets at FanDuel Sportsbook. For example, the Jets. I like them over 5.5. Let's say I'm going to make that bet. Then Brandon will make 2, things like that. We're going to make 6 total bets here on the show for today. Each pick we make is equivalent to 1 unit. So 6 total units from each of us. That means that if you like a bet at plus money, there is going to be a bigger payout for you and thus give you more upside to potentially get fewer picks right, but still win the contest. It's not based on however many win total picks you get right. It's based on your units won. So there's an incentive to be maybe a bit more aggressive at times in selecting some alt markets. We can pick alt markets because FanDuel Sportsbook does have alt markets up for all these teams. And whoever's at the most units at the end of the year will win and be the NFL expert. FanDuel Research, we decided before the show, we're going to make it, if you've listened to our golf show or our NFL DFS show, we have a bobblehead competition because if I win, I get a bobblehead. That's not a bobblehead. That's a figurine. Bobblehead. Brandon gets a hat if he wins. So the stakes could not be higher for this draft for today. Brandon, for you, do the rules make sense as they stand?
Yeah, the rules make sense. That's not what I'm worried about.
Okay, well, let's share this coin toss app then. It looks super janky because I'm literally I Googled coin flip simulator on Google. Do you want heads or tails?
Tails never fails.
Okay. And the coin toss is heads. So I get to pick if I want to go first and fourth or second and third for this. And I think for me, I'm going to wind up going, I think I want first and fourth because there are a couple that I like a decent amount and I would prefer to probably kind of get those on lock. And I'm worried that you may agree with me on those bets. So I do want to go first and fourth. That means that I have the first overall pick in this win total draft. It means I get to make the first bet and there is pressure there to not mess it up. Now, for me, if I'm looking at all the win totals at FanDuel Sportsbook for this year, it's between 2. My favorite one is not an aggressive one. It is going to be the most conservative bet you could possibly make on the board. Oh, dang it. It's moved since this morning. I didn't think these things would move literally this morning. Anyway, I've shown my card, so I might as well at least take it. Chicago Bears under 8.5 wins at -155 as my first win total bet for exercise. I have the Bears win total a pretty decent amount lower than that. It feels like it's probably too low. I've got it at 6.4, and that means I could go towards the alt market under 6.5 wins at +190. I have faith in Ben Johnson. I think the infrastructure on Caleb Williams is pretty good. The reason that I want to go towards the under, despite being broadly pro Caleb Williams and liking the infrastructure here, is I think there's still some issues with this team. It is basically a new organization coming in to lead the charge here. There can be some growing pains trying to learn a new system for Caleb Williams. The defense, not perfect by any means. Offensive line, much improved, but it can take some time for those guys to gel, and also a very tough schedule for the Bears. If I were to project them out without accounting for their schedule, they would be at 7.2 wins. So they lose 0.8 wins based on their schedule, which is the second toughest schedule in the entire league, trailing just the New York Giants there. So I'm going to take the Bears under 8.5 wins. -155 was -145 this morning. I thought there was no chance these things would move after this morning because win totals tend to be pretty stagnant, but I'll bite the bullet. I got Bears under 8.5 wins, -155. Any thoughts for you on this specific bet, Brandon?
Well, we kind of glossed over the logic behind why we like how we kind of go about win totals. So,
I meant to ask you that. I told you I was going to
Yeah.
ask you that, and I forgot.
Well, I was interested in, you laid out your reasoning, but the types of things you're looking for.
Yeah.
You mentioned schedule, like that's a big one. Of course, that you need to look into, but there are so many different ways you can look into a win total, and if you don't necessarily trust like the infrastructure, like that's a pretty legitimate way to think about things. So that's a big part of it. They're like, this is such a non-specific process, and I think there's no way to nail it down, because like I've got the simulations, but I also don't think that that's necessarily perfect. So I think there's a lot of like, and I'm gonna be talking out of like both sides of my mouth for some things of like, hey, this fits, my thought process, and I'm gonna ignore it for this other team. But no, honestly, I think that the Bears, they like, even if you
were
look
they on your list?
What's that?
Were they on your list?
Let me look. I was actually trying to jot down so I didn't like take anything. Because I didn't look into the Bears at all. So like that's part of this is So yeah, I have them with a difficult schedule, of course. I have them with about 8.2 wins.
Okay.
Where did you have them winding up?
6.4.
Wow. Okay. Sorry if you mentioned that.
I am below.
This is like a mega test of me with all my tabs open to sort of have a bit of everything. But yeah, I mean, if you see that much value, that's pretty interesting to me.
Yeah. So minus 155 hurts. And I should have considered under 6.5 at plus 190, but again, that's pretty aggressive. I think that my numbers are too low on them. Probably should bump up their projected passing efficiency, but I've already done that quite a bit. And like, I don't know how much more I can do and feel reasonable about that. So I don't know. I think I'm going to go that way. So I'll take the Bears under 8.5 wins and minus 155. That means that you are on the clock for the next two picks. So what is your first win total? I will clarify too. If Brandon also I know he doesn't based on our discussion. Let's say he also like the Bears under, he could go towards that alt at plus 190. We can double up as long as it's not the same exact bet. He could go more aggressive and get the same directional bet with his, but you're not going that race. So what is your next pick in this draft?
No, I'm not. And we kind of discussed whether we'd kind of go back and forth. We said, yeah, maybe, but I was looking ahead more to my picks because there was one on the board I thought you might go with based on some stuff that I've seen from you, but I'm actually
did you read? Okay, so like I'm at a disadvantage here. You can read my win total pieces.
No, I made these picks and then I was like out of curiosity looking up.
But you can pick like the hierarchy, how you want to rank them. Anyway, make your pick. Come on.
What do you want me to do here?
Being sniped because
the same thing.
I am being killed because I'm making content for the site. Come on, terrible.
Okay, I don't even know if you would agree with. Well, first of all, I'm picking that one second because I want to get something similar. I was interested to know how you would handle the specific odds with your first early picks because. That definitely factors in, but I'm going to go with another one that's pretty heavy minus odds at minus 140, but that's for the Giants under 5.5.
Okay.
So there are numerous like ways, again, as we talked about, there are different, we didn't talk about, which is kind of the problem of what you're looking for. And for me, a lot of it has to do with, like I'll simulate things out based on perceived team strength and kind of get a feel for how often teams would fall above or below their actual win total and, account for the odds, all that kind of stuff. But at a certain point, I need to also be able to look back and say, where are the winnable games for teams? Yeah. And when you do that simple, sort of straightforward method, with the Giants, there just aren't a lot. Yeah, I've got them as heavy underdogs in 10 of 17 games, so at least 6 points. Kind of 2 coin flip games where I'd have a projected spread, between 2 points either way, and probably doesn't need to be stated, but like no games as big favorites. So straight away, that cuts down like your amount of winnable games that you have. I do think that they could have a bit of like a Steelers East sort of situation where they have a good front and just sort of between Russell Wilson and Jackson Dart, they just kind of are like fine offensively and chip away. But I really like the division that they're in. They have the toughest schedule for me based on my numbers. And like I think that's the best case scenario is they kind of bleed their way to a 6th win. But again, you look at the schedule itself, and we're going to learn that some of these teams that we project certain ways aren't those teams, but there's just not a lot of wiggle room. And, the odds are on, my side at minus 140 here. On my side in terms of probability, but not necessarily helping me out with churning out units. But for me, I just look at the Giants and I don't see enough on the offensive side to scare me into a strong season for them to get the 6 wins.
Do you have them favored in any game this year?
Oh wait, I have it set. Okay, so it's the kind of stuff we should have talked about beforehand, but just the way that I have it set up. Let me unfreeze. Got the biggest spreadsheet, so I have it laid out by like week to week, so I'd have to double check. But I mean, they'd be favored home if anything. So
no, they're actually favored. I have them favored in only one game, and it's on the road. It's against the Saints.
Okay. So,
I had the Giants favored by 0.2 points in that game. That's the only time they're favored the entire year for me, and I have them with win probability above 45% or above 44% in 0 other games. So although I had their win total of 5.5, like your methodology of like how many winnable games do they have, that answer is very low.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I'd like to get this one on the board.
Yeah.
With some decent odds here. And I don't feel that nervous about it, frankly.
Okay. Well, I like that pick, so I can understand that one for sure. So your first win total is the Giants under 5.5 at minus 140. You get a second pick here. What will be your second pick here in this draft?
So this is one that I thought you might like after the fact. And this is also one, though, that a lot of win projections kind of disagree with me on, which is interesting. And I know it's a bit hefty for a team that struggled a year ago for, I would say, various reasons. But I like over 10.5 wins for the 49ers at minus 110.
I did have that in my list. It was not like one of my top 2 picks, but it was a very draftable bet for me. So I am on board with this broadly. Let me see here. It was number 9 on my list, or number 8 on my list. So like it was high enough where I was like, okay, if we overlap too much, I will get here. But yes, I was very on board with this in general.
So I have them with the easiest schedule in the league by a pretty good margin, sort of as a
half win easier than any other team for me.
Sort of as a function, of finishing last in the division a year ago. But I've got them with 9 games as being heavy favorites. And that's a good chunk of the way to their win total. They don't face a single team coming off of a bye this year, which is also nice. They invested heavily in the defense in the offseason, both from the draft. And I mean, they were honestly one of the more injured teams a year ago. And even with that a top 12 adjusted offense, according to NumberFire's metrics, and a top half adjusted pass defense, which is the much more important factor defensively. They could have some like hiccups early defensively, but I kind of don't think that another letdown season is in the cards for a team that looks this good. I would say this thorough. It's not a perfect team, but I'm also not overly worried in general about the NFC West. And one of the other things that we did not talk about that I like to look into is just how you performed in 1-score games last year. They were 2-6 in games decided by 8 points either way. That's not really what we would expect from the 49ers. And the biggest kicker here is, yes, it's a pretty tall task to get to 11 wins for any team. However, the minus 110 odds is actually how and why I vaulted this one up a bit, because there are a lot of bets to like if you're okay with your first pick was minus 155, mine was minus 140. Sure, But that was like the hardest part, I think, of trying to rank this stuff is yes, you want to hit, you got to hit the bets. But to me, honestly, I like the 49ers more than a lot of teams in the NFC this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the schedule does play a pretty big role in that. I'm just expecting this infrastructure to be pretty good because they made some investments along the offensive line. They have Kyle Shanahan. I think Brock Purdy's a good quarterback. Hopefully Brandon Ayuk is back. I would bet he does miss games to start the year, but also they've got guys who can help get them through that gap at the beginning if he does miss time. So overall, and they took a ton of swings on defense. Robert Saleh's back. I think that they will be a much better team this year. So that was very much on my list too. I agree with that for sure.
And their early season schedule is not that bad.
No.
So that also is helpful if Ayuk does miss some time to start.
And also, like, from a vibes perspective, they could probably use a good start if you want good vibes. And so I think that actually does kind of matter for them. So, okay, you've got the Niners over 10.5 wins, -110. I was worried when you said, hey, I thought this one might be on your list because, Brandon, if you check out the thumbnail on YouTube for this show, the two cover boys are Caleb Williams, who was my first pick. Other cover boy is Aaron Rodgers, sporting a wedding ring as the other cover boy here. I was kind of worried you were going to like, oh, I saw the thumbnails on the thing. You might have revealed your preferences to Justin when you sent over the thumbnail request earlier. I did. That is accurate. And luckily, the Steelers are still on the board. So I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers under 8.5 wins at -130. I had the Steelers under last year, which did not go well. And luckily for me, I knew it was not going to go well right away because they worked their Mike Tomlin voodoo magic and they won a bunch of games immediately. And they do look very stupid. It's like, okay, cool. We can write that off right away. I had bet them a couple times individually during the season. So I was able to like cancel out the bad win total bet. So I've been bit by this before, betting against Mike Tomlin and thinking that his voodoo magic will finally stop. His run of terror will come to an end. Maybe this is the year where it comes to an end. Maybe it'll bite me again. I don't know how it'll work, but just from like a win total, like a projection perspective, I can't get to 8.5 because the Steelers play in a very difficult division where Joe Burrow should be healthy once again. They've got the key players back for the Bengals. Lamar Jackson is there. The Browns suck. That is what it is. But when I put in all the factors, factor in the schedule they face, lose about 0.4 wins for me based on the schedule they'll face this year. I want to put their win total at 7. And so with them sitting at 8.5 under a -130, it winds up looking like a pretty good value for me. So I'm going to go with the Steelers, my second overall pick, under 8.5 wins at -130. Were the Steelers on your list, Brandon?
They were not, mostly because the win totals in a lot of ways are really subjective and how you perceive things. I don't think this team is like offensively demonstrably different than what they were a year ago. Like, yeah, they got DK Metcalf, but no more George Pickens. Quarterback situation kind of, I don't know that it's that different. And despite that, I mean, they won 10 games a year ago because this team just finds ways to make things happen. And that was the main reason that I just was like, you know what? I would agree with you. I would lean under, but overall, I just kind of wanted to avoid the Steelers one way or the other.
I think wanting to avoid them in general is a good approach to this. And I kind of wish I had done that at several times in my life, but we're not doing it here. So I got the Steelers under 7.5 or 8.5 wins and -130. We're going to keep the bad vibes rolling because my third pick is also an under because why would it not be? Now, first two, -155 for the Bears, -130 for the Steelers. I've had a lot of heavily juiced numbers. So we're going to take a number here that is a bit more aggressive and take the New England Patriots under 7.5 wins at +135. And this comes back to what we discussed before, where the infrastructure is still not something that I fully buy into with this team. That's not anything about Drake May. I think Drake May is super fun. I enjoy watching him. I hope Drake May is good as someone who enjoys watching football. I just don't know how well they positioned him to have success. Yes, they have made investments along the offensive line. Yes, they brought in some new pieces to the pass catching core, But those new pieces are a third-round rookie in Kyle Williams and a 31-year-old wide receiver coming off a torn ACL in Stephon Diggs, and a guy who wasn't really that efficient while playing with Josh Allen and CJ Stroud before he had that ACL tear. So I'm not really sure how much better they actually made things. Like if they had actually gotten Chris Godwin, like they wanted to in free agency, this is not for lack of effort. Like they tried to make the infrastructure better for Drake May. I think if they had actually gotten that, yeah, I could see the enthusiasm here around the Patriots at this number. But that didn't happen. That's not how things wound up working out. So when I take all this for the Patriots and put it in a blender with a defense that I project to be a bit below average, despite the fact Christian Gonzalez was a freak show last year, I've got their win total at 6.7. So once again, showing pretty good value in the under. We're getting plus 135 here. That allows me to make mistakes elsewhere and potentially make up some ground. So I'm going to take the Patriots under 7.5 wins, plus 135 as my third pick. Brandon, I saw that you smiled when I made that pick. Were they on your list potentially for, hopefully not for different reasons? Where were you on the Patriots?
Yeah, potentially for different reasons, but minus 160 for over 7.5 bumped it way down my list.
Okay. Okay.
A lot of it has to do with the schedule.
Yeah.
I don't really, yes, there are the Bills, but I'm not super fearful of the rest of the division in general. They kind of have they have some unwinnable games in a sense where they just shouldn't be favored against some better teams by any stretch. But a lot of, I would say, games that they should be competitive in. Yeah. And I could see the path to 8+ wins. But again, the odds there themselves bumped it down my list. I don't know. This is so hard to do on the fly. Maybe I end up getting there.
Sure.
If depending on how
you can wait to the last round now, because I'm not taking their over.
That's fair. But yeah, I understand the case for it. And that's the hardest part for someone like me. I try to be receptive, look at the wisdom of the crowds. I can be swayed to one way or the other for a lot of situations.
Sure.
The Patriots, frankly, I don't have a strong opinion on, but I would actually lean toward the over just based on my model here. But honestly, I don't feel very strongly in that. And I disagree with my models a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Especially for these win totals, because it's really difficult to model things out. And if you look around the internet for win totals, a lot of them are real clustered. Yeah. So it's going to make some of these weaker teams look better compared to their actual win totals that you can bet. Some of the stronger teams, just because things are bunched up more, and that's not really how we see NFL seasons played out. So I don't have a lot of conviction in the Patriots, but that is why if I reacted, that would be why.
Okay. I'm going to try to pick some on your list. So I force you to go head to head with me on this one, because I think that'd be more fun if we actually have some more dueling. I have not disagreed with any of yours yet. None of them in my list in the opposite direction. So I'm rooting for you to wind up on the Patriots with their over. So I got the Patriots under 7.5 wins, plus 135 as my third pick. So I've got Bears under 8.5, minus 155, Steelers under 8.5, minus 130. Brandon has Giants under 5.5, minus 140, and the Niners over 10.5, minus 110. You are on the clock, Brandon. Where do you want to go with your third pick in this draft?
So the unders, I think, are going to continue here. Unfortunately,
under. Well, 5 of 6.
I got it over in there. But and this one hurts because I love them, but the Lions under 10.5, minus 125. The minus 125 is fine. Again, I love them.
Called it before we got anywhere close to the section. All ball agreed with you. Lions under. So we're in accordance there.
Yeah. It's tough because I'm not going to want to root against this team.
Yeah.
However, there's a lot I think that we can point to and just kind of be a little bit uneasy about. I have them with the second most difficult schedule this year for starters, which I think is relevant. And for a more, hey, I don't like Brandon's model, whatever. They got 11 playoff teams on the slate this year. That's difficult. They got new coordinators on both sides of the ball. Their point differential was incredible last year, and I'm not going to take that away from them. Again, I'm just sprinkling in the nuggets of things I like to look for. But point differential in general, because yes, there's turnover with personnel, both in the front office, coaching staffs, and then on the field. But for the most part, I like to look at that and get a feel for things. But they were 7-2 in one score games, which when you typically see records quite like that, it doesn't always stick the next year. And I think this one, honestly, is just a victim of the schedule. I really, in general, am fearful of this division, probably outside of the Bears, which might sound a little hectic because I'm not in love with another team in this. But I think this whole division could kind of fall back from where they were a year ago with three teams with at least 11 wins. I don't know if that's going to stick this year because those teams were pretty much all good in one score games too. So for me, Lions under. Do you have thoughts on that?
I do. We might have to talk about them later on. I'll leave it at that. It makes me very uncomfortable that I might talk about it later on because Frank Ragnow is a very good football player and he's retiring. I respect Ben Johnson. I've loved Aaron Glenn ever since I played Madden as a kid. So maybe we'll talk about it later. Maybe I can talk myself out of it. You've got the Lions under 10.5 wins, -125. What's your fourth pick here?
So yet another under
okay.
For an offense that's fun, but honestly, to me, not even in the same stratosphere. And that's going to be for Houston.
Oh, okay.
Under 9.5 wins. I know that their division historically is like, just give every team a bump because they're in the AFC South, but they should be good again defensively. Top 5 based on number fires adjusted metrics a year ago. They got a new offensive coordinator, could unlock some things. They've got some of the scariest playmakers in all of football, honestly. And they've got a middling schedule, but that's different than kind of being big favorites in a lot of games. They got to 10-7 last year with a point differential of 0, which is not particularly good. And they didn't have like a great one score record necessarily at 7-5, but that's a lot of one score games. A lot of like, they just never really made me feel that worried for the most part. Now they could just be like buzzsaw through this division with a good defense, but to me, they're rating out as a bit overrated to get to 10 wins. I finally am starting to believe in the Jaguars a little bit. So I think that this team is just probably a little bit overrated for, having won the division 2 years in a row. Someone's got to kind of feel like the team there. I'm just not convinced that they're like the team necessarily or one of the big teams to get sort of put in the like pantheon of these are the 10-win teams to me. So I know I don't really want to root against them either, but frankly, -125 is not too bad. So I'm on the under for the Texans at 9.5.
Okay. That is at -125. So your two picks there, the Lions under 10.5, -125, Texans under 9.5, -125. That means that of our first 7 picks, 6 have been unders. The next 2 picks will also be unders. I'm just going to say that now. When you were going through this process, what do you think led to that enthusiasm for unders? I think for me, part of it is like, okay, if you look at like the average win totals of FanDuel Sportsbook, the average win total is 8.5. That's like exactly league average. But the average like odds in the over 51.1. And so it's like, I don't know like if there's a systemic reason to like it's not. Sportsbooks offer both overs and unders. If they were to be too optimistic on everything, they get hammered by sharp bettors on unders. So it's not a situation where like they overinflate all win totals, thinking people will be over optimistic. No, they'll get hammered the other direction. What do you think is the reason why both of us have wound up heavily gravitating towards the unders, given that we're not like super, super pessimistic people in general?
Well, I don't know I guess you've never met me or you haven't.
I mean, I said people. That means we're a collective group. And, okay. I'm not pessimistic.
I guess your optimism level just cancels me out. Honestly, I think it comes down to the fear. Like, I talked about this, about if you look at win total projections, take your pick, whatever source you like, you're going to see things clustered and it's going to make it hard to feel super optimistic for the overs for good teams. But I also don't really love the concept of, going for an under with the great teams. Similar logic for overs on like weaker teams because there's reasons not to like that. So you get a lot of those, like, for me, mid-range teams, and see who kind of overperformed a year ago.
Yeah.
And regression's a big part of everything I do when it comes to football, fantasy stuff, betting, etc. I like to look at maybe who's a little bit overvalued in terms of public perception and compare it to the underlying data.
Yeah.
But also these typically, and not exclusively, but a lot of these are going to be teams that maybe performed a little bit better than last year, which goes into the regression part, but that has a real tangible impact on your schedule. And sometimes teams just get like, they were just good enough to kind of get a worse schedule, but they weren't good enough to rate out as, overly positive in terms of getting to their overs. So that's what I kind of think about in terms of these mid-pack teams. What about you? What's kind of leading you there?
I think it's a lot of people talking themselves into the idea of things, and like the idea of Caleb Williams, the idea of Drake May, the idea of Aaron Rodgers. That's the unders that I've had so far. And we're talking ourselves into the idea of things and potential, but not talking about like baseline. It's like potential outweighing baseline. If you like Caleb Williams and think that he's going to be what he can be, that's why I'd look at an alt market, look at over like 10.5 at plus 380, or the Bears to make the playoffs, because like baseline projections is hard to make the Bears look really good. Baseline projection for the Steelers, hard to make them look really good. So I think that for me, when I'm looking at like a draft like this, where I'm trying to go towards the baseline a bit more often, that's why I wind up gravitating towards unders, because I like that I can bet on like things not changing all that much and still see value in the under. So that's kind of what leads me that direction, is people maybe talking themselves a bit too much into the potential. The one theme we've had so far has been unders. The second theme that we're about to have, because you just picked the Texans, is railing on the AFC South, because each of my next two are going to be unders on AFC South teams. I'll start things off with the Colts. I'm going to take their under 7.5 wins at minus 110 as my fourth pick in this draft. It comes down to quarterback play. And their quarterback play, whether it is Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, probably ain't going to be great. Richardson did get some good news on his shoulder. He had a shoulder injury in OTAs. They had to shelve him for a bit. It does sound like he'll be okay to go for training camp, but Richardson, from an efficiency perspective, last year was pretty brutal. Now, the numbers for him as a rookie were good from an efficiency perspective, but that was over a very small sample. We've seen him now over a larger time. This is a team that has invested in his future and still decided to bench him at one point in the year for Joe Flacco. I find that pretty concerning. They bring in Daniel Jones. I don't think Daniel Jones is as meme worthy as people make him out to be. Like he's a below average quarterback, but he's not like hideous. I just don't know if Daniel Jones can succeed in this infrastructure that I'm not like overly enthusiastic about either. So that's where I settle on the Colts. I think the infrastructure here is not amazing. I think their quarterback plays me bad. This defense should be better. They made some changes to the coaching staff defensively that I think will help them, but it's not necessarily something that's going to like totally catalyze a turnaround for me. So I'm going to take the Colts under 7.5 at minus 110. My other under is on a team you alluded to. You said you're coming around on the Jags. I'm not. So I'm going to take the Jags under 7.5 wins, which is sitting at minus 110, the exact same number as the Colts here. And this all comes down to defense. I like Trevor Lawrence. I like Brian Thomas Jr. I think Travis Hunter is a psychopath. When you put those guys on the offensive side of the ball, the Jags are probably going to score points. But the defense is bad. And it does sound like Travis Hunter will play on high leverage snaps. I think that's the best way to deploy him, frankly, where you have him play full-time offense and then get him out there for third downs, obvious passing situations on defense. I commend them. That is an awesome way to deploy him, to keep him somewhat fresh, get him out there for the most important defensive plays, and still kind of take advantage of the fact that he is this hyper special talent. But that defense is so bad, and they didn't do enough, I don't think, to address it. So I see value in their under at 7.5 wins. I've got the Jags at 6.8. I've got the Colts at 6.3. So actually, I probably should have them higher on my list, frankly, as far as a draft pick for here. I think that both these teams could really struggle, and outside of their division, their non-divisional games are pretty tough. And that's a rough thing for the AFC South. So my back-to-back picks here, Colts under 7.5 -110, Jags under 7.5 -110 as well. Any thoughts for you on either the Colts or the Jags, Brandon?
I mean, someone's got to win some games in this division eventually, but it's hard to get too excited about any of these teams. I just, again, it's like same thing year after year where, yeah, I guess the idea of selling yourself on some of these concepts is what you have to do for really this entire division, but specifically like with the Colts, with the Jaguars. So I understand it. And I guess for me, like with the Texans, I got to sell myself. Like I would have to sell myself on their offensive line in order to like the over. So
they have
really hard.
16 new starters along the offensive line. There are only 5 guys who start, but 16 of them are new somehow.
Yeah. So there, it's I guess it's probably not a bad strategy just not to be super optimistic about this division yet again.
Yeah. It's a bummer because Anthony Richardson's another fun quarterback. I like Trevor Lawrence. I like Brian Thomas. I'm betting against players who I do enjoy watching, but got to do what you got to do. So through 5 rounds, I had the Bears under 8.5 -155, Steelers under 8.5 -130, Patriots under 7.5 +135, Colts under 7.5 -110, Jags under 7.5 -110. You've got the Giants under 5.5 -140, 49ers over 10.5, Lions under 10.5, and the Texans under 10.5. You have your final 2 picks in this draft. Where are you going for the first of those, Brandon?
So I was kind of assuming I would throw out a dart and get some of these like alt markets, but I think there's still enough in terms of the baseline markets that I don't think I have to do that. And let's flip things around. Let's get a little more optimistic, pull a little bit more of a Jim. I like I'll end it with 2 overs. Because I like these. You want to, talking about quarterback question marks. I don't know if these 2 teams have that. First, I'm going to go with I got to scroll the whole way down to the bottom of the page, Jim.
All the way to the
Washington, bottom. All the way to the bottom.
Oh, baby.
Washington Commanders over 9.5 wins at -110. They don't have quarterback issues necessarily. And frankly, if Jaden Daniels misses some time, they got a nice backup.
They've got the world's best backup quarterback in football. Arguably the best. We need the qualifier backup quarterback, Marcus Mariota.
So I think the big knock here is going to be for the defense in order to get to 10 wins. But and I guess of another sort of quirk, they face 4 teams coming off of a bye this year. However, those teams aren't necessarily the strongest, and Washington's at home for 3 of those. So I don't think that that's too much of a concern. Even with it factored into my model, it still likes Washington to go over. Daniels, taking another leap, I think is something that is really easy, again, to sell yourself on. His efficiency last year was just off the charts. They brought in Deebo Samuel, and before you give me any like Deebo thoughts here, imagine Jaden Daniels with like Deebo Samuel and Brian Robinson Jr. in the backfield, sort of just some sort of like read option, shifting things around. That feels like efficient rushing offense that is always welcomed in today's NFL. I'm a data guy. It's not that running the ball is bad. It's running the ball poorly that's bad. Yeah. This team is going to be one of the best rushing offenses in football. They've got enough playmakers. I think Terry McLaurin's still one of the more underrated wide receivers in football, which isn't like a hot take or anything. But I think that, they also open up with a soft schedule, which is nice. And one of the things that is also kind of interesting here, I have them as big favorites in 7 games, which helps balance out like a difficult overall schedule. And potentially the thing that could get them there is that they play the Eagles in week 18. There's a chance the Eagles don't necessarily need that game. So it's another kind of positive that I can put in the back pocket. And this is an easy team to root for and to sell yourself on. So I like Washington over 9.5 -110.
Yeah, you mentioned the easy schedule to start. I have them with a 70% win probability in 3 of their first 6 games. They only hit that mark once after that. So it's like, yeah, they do start off pretty well, can build that confidence. Obviously, maybe help Deebo Samuel get back into football shape and stuff like that too. Little on ramp for that. Maybe get, if Terry McLaurin holds out at all, like that can alleviate things. I have a 9.4 because the schedule is tough. I don't know. I'm not betting the Cowboys over because I'm sick of the Cowboys and I'm done.
Right.
But like they're a good football team. It's like that drags down a bit. So yeah, I like betting on Jaden Daniels. I got a 9.4, but no interest in betting their under for me personally. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, Commanders over 10.5 or 9.5 wins -110. What's your other one here?
The Chargers over 9.5 wins.
Nice. I love it.
-105. Another quarterback you don't have to sell yourself on. I know that there are 3 good teams in this division, but the Chargers are one of them. I think they're set up to get to double-digit wins. They were 4-4 in close games last year, 1-score games, and they were top 12 in adjusted offense and defense according to Number Fire. Just one of 6 teams to do that. The others were the Eagles, Chiefs, Lions, Ravens, and Packers, which is pretty good company to be in. They got like 4 coin flip games this year, which is games where I have this expected spread between 2 either way. But a lot of games where they're going to be pretty big favorites, and that's a lot of flexibility to get to 10 wins. So I think the Chargers can continue to build momentum, just continue to be an efficient team on both sides of the ball. And frankly, if the Chiefs ever take a step back, which record wise, they were phenomenal a year ago. A lot of 1-score, like I'll say luck there. But this team is ready to sort of have a solid enough defense that gets their top 8-ish offense into easily double-digit win territory. So I think that it's pretty easy to sort of sell yourself on the Chargers. They were historically one of those teams that you kind of always sell yourself on, and then who knows what happens. But getting a Justin Herbert led team to 10 wins with some good infrastructure, like I think Amari Hampton is going to be a really strong player. My model loved him coming in. Ladd McConkey might be the best receiver in football for all we know. So I like this team, and I think that the biggest knock on them is potentially a difficult like post-bye late season schedule. But I think that they could have enough momentum, build things up where that doesn't matter a ton just to get to 10 wins.
Yeah, you alluded to the fact that like people talk themselves into Chargers every offseason, but like they have a better infrastructure. You alluded to that now. Like Jim Harbaugh is a serious coach, and they've not always had that, frankly. At the top of the chain for the Chargers, Justin Herbert is a quarterback who can move the needle when he's healthy. They have 2 tremendous tackles, as you mentioned, Ladd McConkey, Trey Harris. I think is going to be pretty good too. Defense, still some question marks there for sure, but Jim Harbaugh's a good coach. I trust their coaches there, so I think that's a fun one. I don't have those as a value, but like I like that. I like the process behind the Chargers, and I think that they're overall a team that I'm excited to see what they can do for this year. All right. My final pick of this draft. I have not picked a single over yet, and we're going to change that with the last pick. Got to get some good vibes here. You close with 2 overs. I'll end with an over 2. I've got some options. I could go with the Lions over. Talked about that. 10.5 plus 105. I agree with like the rationale where it's like, the coordinator change is scary. Frank Ragnow is scary. Not super enthused about that. You mentioned not liking another NFC North team. I was curious, is that the Packers or the Vikings?
I'm seeing largely due to the value on the under for the Vikings at plus 115.
Okay. I have them at 8.4, so I'm actually close to you on that one. I like the Packers over a bit, 9.5 plus 105 due to my affection for Jordan Love. Think that he is genuinely good. So I could have gone there as my final one. But where we're going to go is to another old school favorite quarterback of mine. That is going to be Baker, MF, and Mayfield, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to go over 9.5 wins. Even money. God darn it, another one moved. It was 105 this morning. Oh, no, it was even money this morning. I lied. It was actually even money. I can't read. I'm going to go with the Bucs over 9.5 wins. That is even money at FanDuel Sportsbook as my final pick of this draft. And a lot of this comes down to the fact that the NFC South still kind of sucks. I know that we have Bryce Young playing better. And I think a lot of those gains will carry over. I know that Michael Penix Jr. had some efficient games last year. I'm pretty skeptical of that Falcons team, though, still. And the Saints are the Saints. What it all leads to is the Buccaneers having a decently easy schedule despite winning their division. I've got them at plus 0.35 wins based on their schedule, which is a good number for a team playing a first place schedule because they get to play those NFC South teams. And when you add it all together, I've got the Bucs at 10.2 wins. They were good and they were efficient last year, even when they did not have Chris Godwin for the second half of the year. And when Mike Evans missed time, also that Chris Godwin. If you can be efficient when missing two of the better, top 20-ish receivers in football, that tells me the quarterback might be good. Maybe it was Liam Cohen and maybe the Bucs will collapse without him. But Todd Bowles was able to find Dave Canales, got him hired. He was able to get Liam Cohen a head coaching job. Baker Mayfield got Freddie Kitchens a head coaching job back in the day. Maybe Baker Mayfield is just good. These guys keep getting head coaching jobs because of how well Baker Mayfield plays football. At what point do we say maybe Baker is the reason they are doing well? I'm going to say that right now and take the Bucs over 9.5 wins, even money at FanDuel Sportsbook. Injuries to the receivers last year, injuries to the entire secondary for most of last year too. I think that injury regression for them will be a good thing, and I'm going to take the Bucs over 9.5 wins, even money. Any final thoughts for you on the Bucs, Brandon?
I like that one. It's hard to sort of disagree with anything you said. Baker's turned out to be, I don't want to say everything that he was, supposed to be exactly, but he is one of the better quarterbacks in football. This is a really good offense on paper. And you look at that schedule and there's a lot to like. So sometimes it's as simple as that. And, you don't really have to sell yourself on this team exactly. You'd have to sell yourself on the rest of this division. So I'm kind of kicking myself. I probably should have been here, should have drafted this team, honestly.
Okay, so our final rosters for this win total draft. Brandon has the Giants under 5.5, 49ers over 10.5. I highlighted this thing, so now I can't read it. There we go. He has got the Lions under 10.5, got the Texans under 9.5, Commanders over 9.5, and the Chargers over 9.5 at minus 105. I've got the Bears under 8.5. I've got the Steelers under 8.5. Taking the Patriots under 7.5. That one is at plus 135. I got the Colts under 7.5 and the Jags under 7.5. Both those sitting at minus 110. And then close things out with the Bucs over 9.5 at even money for this year. Okay, so I know the structure of that is a little bit chaotic, but any final closing thoughts for you, Brandon? Now that we've done this draft, how are you feeling about your team as things stand?
I like my team. I feel like I got a balance of some unders that I feel good about, some overs that I think are easy to sort of root for. Probably, should have walked away with at least one alt where I could kind of alt things up, but honestly didn't feel the need to. Yeah. Again, 64 baseline overs and unders to sort of go off of. I don't think you needed to do that, and maybe in a GPP, but not necessarily in this head-to-head format.
We'll give some updates on this little head-to-head, probably on the heat check during the fall. So if you want some updates on this as it goes along, check out the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page. Just subscribe over there and turn on notifications for that. We'll be going full bore at that throughout the summer, checking in throughout the fall as well if you want updates on our draft as it goes along. Again, if I win, I get a bobblehead. Brandon wins, he gets a hat. So a lot of stuff still to come throughout the summer. Maybe we'll do like a divisional draft, Super Bowl futures draft. I don't know. Player prop draft, we'll figure it out. I think this is kind of fun enough where I might want to do another one of these down the line. That is all that we have here for today, though. Here on Covering the Spread, as mentioned, no show next week because I am out on vacation, but back with you the following week for what I'm sure will be some fun stuff in the month of July. Brandon, appreciate the time. Good luck to you in your draft, and we'll talk to you once again, I guess tomorrow, talk some golf on the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Took a little bit to get my bearings, but I felt like I hit a stride here. So excited for the NFL. It's really not that far away.
You can find Brandon on X at Gdula13. He is on Blue Sky at Gdula. I am on both X and Blue Sky at JimSannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Enjoy the next couple of weeks. We'll talk to you once again in July to break down some fun events across this summer. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.